Part 41. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 401. From April to June, Zhang Zizai felt that it was the longest time in his life. In his mind, it was equivalent to 2 years. Every day and every night, her smile fills my heart. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. The involvement of the totem has always existed. Zhang Zizai always knew where she was, but he couldn't go in. Occasionally, when I fell asleep, her smile was all in my dreams. Occasionally, I would continue to dream about that bronze gate, towering and indifferent between heaven and earth. He didn't care about the gate. Every day was torture, and he was counting the days, waiting for the first day of June to arrive. Sometimes he couldn't stand it any longer, so he had no choice but to go out and relax. Feng Xiaoxiao would come to him occasionally. She already knew the whole story. She also made Zhang Zizai believe that the first god and the 9 immortals would be able to overcome this difficulty. When she saw that Zhang Zizai was irritable and gloomy, as if he was a completely different person, she understood very clearly. Perhaps, she had already had some affection for this boy, but this kind of affection was nothing compared to the blood stains on his forehead that had not been wiped off. She had sprinted into the Divine Seal realm, but Zhang Zizai, who had entered the second level of the Divine Seal realm early, had no intention of practicing at all. It was obvious that he would not be able to complete the task before the first day of June. He was definitely anxious, but the more he jumped, the more confused he became. Let's go for a walk. Feng Xiaoxiao thought that taking him for a walk might help him relax a little. Otherwise it would be too distressing to watch. Zhang Zizai followed her out, walking around and seeing the bustling Bailitian street, which really made her feel more relaxed. Many people dare not approach Zhang Zizai because the evil aura on his body is too strong. At noon, the sound of gongs and drums was suddenly heard, and the scene was very lively. A group of people and horses came from the front, all wearing bright red clothes, and the atmosphere was very lively. There were 8 large sedan chairs behind, and all the people carrying the sedan chairs were an acquaintance Zhang Zizai had met. Among them was a young man, sitting on a tall white horse, smiling happily and proudly. The young man was not old, but he had already put on the groom's clothes, and he was obviously not yet at the normal age of marriage. Shizhi and Xuanhuan got married. Last month Shijian went to propose marriage. Originally, he had to wait until Shizhi turned 16, but Shijian might be anxious and wanted to implement this matter as soon as possible to stabilize the relationship between him and the Qi family. In order to avoid long nights and long dreams, the Qi family agreed. Yuan'er is very pitiful. She doesn't like Xiu very much, especially since Xiu is still young and not very sensible. Feng Xiaoxiao couldn't help it when she saw the wedding reception team. Zhu said. At this time, the bride should have been picked up. Shiji's face was glowing red. People along the way congratulated him, and he responded to them one by one. His bride's sister was already sitting in the sedan chair. When she arrived at the Shi family, she went to the wedding hall and got married, and she was his from now on. While Zhang Zizai and the others were still on their way forward, everyone around them had already moved out of the way. Although Zhang Zizai was in Bailey Tianjia, his thoughts were never in front of him, so he didn't look at Xiu until the team came to him, his eyes cold. Let them pass. Feng Xiaoxiao gently pulled his sleeve. The marriage between their 2 families was out of Zhang Zizai's turn. Zhang Zizai didn't bother to disturb them. But at that time you saw him in despair, and he was in the midst of the spring breeze. Thinking of the suffering he suffered at the hands of Zhang Zizai, he just couldn't hold it back and said with a smile, "It turns out that he is the son of the ancient god. I'm going to welcome you today, please the ancient son of God, please give way. Don't delay my good time." Zhang Zizai had already walked away a little, and when he heard the teasing laughter in his words, he paused. When Shizhi saw this, and there were many people around him, he emboldened himself, and when he finally encountered Zhang Zizai in a state of despair, he found it difficult to control his mouth and couldn't help but said, "What does this mean, son of the ancient god? You have a bumpy relationship, and you fall in love with someone you shouldn't like, so don't disturb other people's happiness." Thinking of Zhang Ziu teasing Qi Yuan on the battlefield of the beast god, he felt angry until today. He finally got a chance to fight back. After saying this, he felt a little proud. And he knew that the elders in the family, including two uncles who were strong in the divine seal realm, had already come to his side. Everyone knows that Zhang Zizai is very manic now. He may taunt him a little, but he must protect himself. His words made Zhang Zizai stop completely. His eyes were filled with cold black energy and locked on Shiger's smiling face. "Shiger, since you are so happy, don't look for trouble. You are jumping up and down like a fool at this time," Feng Xiaoxiao said. After all, as a senior sister, she had to teach him a lesson. However, Shiger didn't have any fear at all and said, "Sister, what I said makes sense and is also helpful to the ancient Son of God. I heard that the cursor has disappeared. This is also her fate. As the Shen sect, I people, seeing that the ancient Son of God has been neglecting his cultivation all day long and has been severely beaten, I am also anxious. Today, I will use my special day to try to cheer up the ancient Son of God and cheer him up." After being suppressed by Zhang Zizai for so long, it was time to beat him up. After finishing speaking, Xiu couldn't help but laugh, feeling proud of his cleverness. There were two powerful men in the divine seal realm standing next to him, and he didn't believe that Zhang Zizai could touch him. However, seeing that he was so bold and dared to offend the ancient Son of God at this time, people were still a little worried. After all, before this, Zhang Zizai directly killed Lu Huai. Unexpectedly, just when Shi Yu finished speaking, Zhang Zizai's eyes were cold and he suddenly moved. The two powerful men in the God Seal realm were very nervous. They directly intercepted in front of Shi Yu and shouted, "Ancient Son of God! Even if you are of noble status, you can't hurt people at will." They were confident that they could hold Zhang Zizai down. After all, they were all in the 4th level of the God Seal realm and were almost able to participate in the God Servant assessment. They suddenly attacked, and in fact, they had long wanted to teach this lawless ancient Son of God a lesson. After all, Zhang Zizai attacked first, and they had the reputation of attacking. However, they really underestimated Zhang Zizai. They saw Zhang Zizai rushing towards them and was about to fight with them. At this moment, Zhang Zizai suddenly swam away from them and crossed with the two. They were too careless. They would have been fine if they had stayed by Shi Yu's side, but in order to capture Zhang Zizai, they actually took the initiative to attack. This left a wide gap behind them. Zhang Zizai's body movements were top-notch. He just bypassed them and appeared directly in front of Shi Yu. They were once evenly matched opponents, but now Zhang Zizai's palm directly pinched Shi Yu's neck and lifted him off the horse. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 402. Ah, Xiu screamed, panicked. He couldn't breathe at all. He stared at Zhang Zizai with wide eyes and broke out in cold sweat. The black energy from Zhang Zizai's body wrapped around him, plunging him into extreme darkness and making him feel numb all over. At this time, a girl in red opened the sedan curtain. It was Qi Yuan. She had taken off the red hijab, and now there were still some tears on her face and her eyes were slightly red and swollen. It was obvious that she had not been crying for a while, but had been crying for a long time. As soon as she opened the sedan curtain, she saw Zhang Zizai grabbing Xiu's neck and lifting him up. Shiger's face turned red. He was angry and scared. This complicated psychology reached its peak after he saw Qi Yuan show up. "You dare to kill me? My father will definitely make you irrecoverable. Don't think that you can do whatever you want because you are the son of the ancient god. Zhang Zizai, I am not afraid of you at all. Although he was shouting loudly, when his eyes met Zhang Zizai's, his lower body was wet and he was obviously incontinent. Do you think this is her life? Zhang Zizai suddenly smiled, and all his anger for more than a month was concentrated on his palm. But today, everything was on fire for Zhang Zizai. Otherwise, if he hadn't done many evil things in his previous life, how could he be cursed by the ancient gods in this life? Shijir gritted his teeth. He saw that two powerful men from the Divine Seal realm had rushed forward and could save him immediately, and he felt confident in his heart. But, she was just an ordinary good person in her previous life. Zhang Zizai said with a trembling voice, but his eyes were extremely sharp. He didn't know who to vent his countless anger on, but Xiu himself had a bad mouth and bumped into his eyes. Here, until this moment, he didn't even know Zhang Zizai could kill someone. Just when Xiu was still about to speak, Zhang Zizai suddenly twisted. Click. Clear voice, everyone can hear it. Shijir's eyes instantly turned white and his tongue fell out. Before he could struggle, his whole body went completely limp in an instant. He is dead. Zhang Zizai pursed his lips and dropped him on the ground as if nothing happened. His eyes met Qi Yuan's trembling eyes. Qi Yuan shrank back and stared at everything blankly. Sorry, you can't get married, Zhang Zizai said. The sedan curtain was lowered and she was locked inside, not knowing what to think. Zhang Zizai, a group of people picking up the bride, all Shijir's friends and family cousins, screamed at this time and stared blankly at the limp body. The two powerful men in the Divine Seal realm were stunned at this time, and they backed away with pale faces. No one could imagine that he would actually kill someone. And after he was done, he walked away casually, and no one could stop him. The two powerful men in the Divine Seal realm were trembling. They protect Shijir, but now that Shijir is dead, they have a great responsibility. Stop. If you dare to kill Shijir and Zhang Zizai, you are finished, said one of the powerful men in the Divine Seal realm. Are you going to stop me? Zhang Zizai turned around and looked at him with eyes burning with black flames. For a moment, the man made no sound. The street was trembling, but no one stood up. What happens here will soon be reported to the Shijian. They must be waiting for the bride and groom to arrive over there. Today, the Shi family is decorated with lanterns and festoons. Since there was no one to stop him, Zhang Zizai turned around and left. At this time, there was a familiar voice, and he shouted in a deep voice, "The ancient Son of God, you have to give an explanation for killing a Son of God for no reason." Zhang Zizai turned around and saw that these words were said by Yi Tian, who was also standing next to him. People from Tianshan Palace actually came to Bailey Tianja of Beast God Palace. If you want an explanation, come and get it. Zhang Zizai took out the magic eye and turned it directly into a long sword. For a moment, murderous intent surged. The people of the Shi family, as well as the young people watching, naturally did not dare to stop Zhang Zizai due to his status as the son of the ancient god. At this time, Yi Tian unexpectedly appeared. Now, they are still regarded as the supreme talents of Shenzong. On the Wushan battlefield, Yishan was defeated and lost his identity as the son of the ancient god. How could he be worried? Now, when Zhang Zizai pulled out the magic eye ruthlessly, Yi Tian's eyes also narrowed. In the past 6 months, he had been practicing hard in seclusion, working hard and enduring hardships, just to wait for this moment. How could he be willing to be defeated that day? The craziness of half a year was just to defeat Zhang Zizai. Even if he could not become the son of the ancient god, he still had to clear his name again. Let the world know who is the #1 genius of Shenzong. Everything that originally belonged to Yi Tian was taken away by Zhang Zizai. In the past 6 months, he had dreamed of getting everything for himself. Although Zhang Zizai had better training resources, he knew very well that most of his time in the past 6 months had been spent on the 9 Immortals, especially in the past 2 months, he had been completely wasted. This information is all good news for him. This is also the reason why, as a member of the Heavenly God Palace, he wanders around the Beast God Palace. If he wants to find an opportunity to challenge, it must be in a sufficiently sensational occasion. He was afraid that Zhang Zizhe would not dare to challenge. Unexpectedly, when Zhang Zizhe saw it was him, he immediately drew out his sword, which showed how furious he was at this moment. It's actually Yi Tian. It is said that he practiced hard for half a year and worked hard to defeat Zhang Zizhe. It is said that he also broke through to the second level of the Divine Seal realm a few days ago. Actually, Yi Tian was careless in the last competition for the Ancient Son of God. No matter what, he is suitable to be our Ancient Son of God. Zhang Zizhe is really cruel. He is still entangled with the cursor, and he killed people randomly twice in a row. It is obvious that he is a cruel person. If such a person holds supreme power in the future, it will not be the gospel of our Shenzong. It's scary to think about it. If Yi Tian defeats him this time, it would be great if the sect master can let Yi Tian become the son of the ancient god. He has a gentle personality and his totem is upright enough. To be honest, this is the Beast God Palace, and Yishan is from the Tianshan Palace. At this time, even the people in the Beast God Palace are speaking for Yi Tian, which shows how much they have opinions on the matter of the God curse. During the discussion, Yishan's eyes were cold and stern, and he quickly entered the arena. His fighting spirit was surging. He had been preparing for this moment for too long. Zhang Zizhe was approaching him step by step with one man and one sword, his demonic aura overwhelming. Everyone gave way to the fighting space. Feng Xiaoxiao had a terrible headache, but she couldn't stop him. Seeing Shi Yuzhirai still lying on the ground, she hurriedly left to find her new father. Otherwise, Zhang Zizhe will be in a lot of trouble when the time comes. In the midst of all the noise, the two of them didn't even say a word and just killed each other. Yishan continues to show the chess game Totem of Heaven and Earth. Trapping Zhang Zizhe in grids one after another, he has reached the second level of the Divine Seal realm. With the power of the Totem Divine Seal, this world chess game is certainly more powerful. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 403. Being able to break through to the Divine Seal realm in the past 6 months, and then advance one level, shows how fierce his talent and efforts are. Yishan came prepared. The Heaven and Earth chess game Totem descended, and then the black and white soul chess was sacrificed. 2 chess pieces were placed above Zhang Zizhe's head. The same totem magic weapon, but under the control of the power of the Totem Divine Seal, the power is completely different. In other words, it takes such a powerful force now, so that Yishan can better exert the power of the Heaven and Earth chess game and the black and white soul chess. The black and white soul chess rotated left and right, forming a vortex circle that enveloped Zhang Zizhe, and invisibly generated a storm that suppressed the soul. Zhang Zizhe under this vortex, his soul was shaken. Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow dot. Break. Yishan was confident, and the black and white soul chess suppressed it. Everyone exclaimed, purely because Yishan's means were too powerful, which reminded them of this man's power. Under his suppression, Zhang Zizhe seemed a little weak. But unfortunately, this was just their thought for a moment. The next moment, Zhang Zizhe was like an awakened ancient beast. He let out an angry beast roar, and suddenly, the black space spread out, directly engulfing the entire chess game of Heaven and Earth. This is his swallowing domain, the world he controls. In his world, Yishan's true energy consumption increased by 3 times. He originally needed to consume a lot of Totem Divine Seal power to control the chess game of Heaven and Earth, and at this time, there was even more vast power pouring out. The key is that all these consumed powers gathered around Zhang Zizai. The horror of the devouring demon dragon totem was revealed again. In the surging demonic energy, only Yishan himself knew the horror of this domain. His chess game of heaven and earth can control Zhang Zizai, but he can't control himself from being suppressed by the swallowing domain, let alone control Zhang Zizai's violent power. In the chess game of heaven and earth, his eyes were burning with black flames at this time. He suddenly put away his magic eyes. When everyone thought he had given up the fight, his left hand condensed into a fist. People didn't see that the ancient god mark on his hand had already turned pure black. Perhaps, even Xuanhuan Chushan didn't know about the changes in this month. In this gloomy month, the ancient god mark kept changing, and finally turned black, and there was even a phantom of a black dragon on it. The more irritable Zhang Zizai was, the darker the ancient god mark became. At this time, Zhang Zizai had no faith at all, but he knew very well how much power had continued in the ancient god mark for such a long time. In other words, the ancient god mark may have changed his totem. Now, there is also the power he devoured from Yishan, which is gathered in the ancient god mark. On his left hand, there is a terrifying power, like an ancient hand, hiding in the ancient god mark, trying to break out of it. Buzz buzz buzz. Zhang Zizai's left hand trembled. At this time, Yishan's black and white soul chess, accompanied by the mysterious palm of heaven and earth, completely suppressed and came. The chess game of heaven and earth was in chaos, constantly changing Zhang Zizai's position, leaving him nowhere to escape. At this time, Zhang Zizai only did one thing, that is, just punch. Eternal God Fist. A punch was thrown, and an unimaginable terrifying force erupted. Buzz. Strong tremors, the chess game of heaven and earth torn apart in an instant, the surrounding space was trembling at this time. That punch was as powerful as a rainbow, as powerful as a bamboo, and the violent power was like the roar of an ancient god. A punch was thrown out, the sky shook, and the majestic power swept away. In an instant, it tore the totem of heaven and earth, destroyed the mysterious palm of heaven and earth, and shook the black and white soul chess. At the same time, it also blasted Yishan, who was full of confidence, to spurt blood and fly back. With just one move, Zhang Zizai made him fall to the ground, trembling all over, and couldn't get up for a short time. Zhang Zizai showed no mercy. At this time, Yishan's bones and internal organs were broken and shattered, so he was bleeding all over, his eyes were dull, and he couldn't move at all. The battle is over. Yishan fell to the ground, his life or death unknown, and Zhang Zizai took a deep breath, as if nothing had happened, and said lightly, "Don't overestimate your own abilities." Such a result of the battle is like really overestimating one's own abilities. But obviously, they should be evenly matched. All the people in Bailey Tianjia gathered here, and at this time they looked at Zhang Zizai in deathly silence. Su Ying from Fuebao Pavilion pulled the clothes on her chest and couldn't help but feel a little scared. She really felt that Zhang Zizai was too dangerous. Now most people looked at him with some fear in their eyes. Even some people who were much older than Zhang Zizai. Qi Yuan's sedan chair opened again, she glanced at Yishan on the ground and shuddered. She didn't pay attention to Qi Yu anymore, which meant that she really didn't like him. There was silence for a long time. Yishan, Tianyi finally reacted and ran to Yishan's side. Yishan is dead. The ancient god has killed again. The murderous devil. I don't know who shouted, and it spread out immediately, causing extreme panic. The scene suddenly became chaotic. Fortunately, at this time, Tianyi helped Yishan up. Yishan coughed up some blood, but he was obviously not dead. But people clearly saw that even if he was not dead, he was seriously injured. The son of the ancient gods is really crazy. He killed 2 people first, and now he has hurt Yishan so badly. He is really cruel. Is such a person really suitable for worshipping the ancient gods? They doubted. He was not like this before. It must be that person who influenced him. What a witch, she ruined him. At such a young age, he is obsessed with beauty. There is really no good end. People are heartbroken. Yishan said nothing and let Tianyi take him away. He had received an infinite blow and would not look at Zhang Zizai again. He delayed time. A large group of people from Shijian's family and the holy servants who were preparing to attend the wedding were all present. In fact, Feng Xiaoyao was also present, so he heard the news and came with Shijian and others. When he first arrived, he saw Zhang Zizai directly defeat Yishan, and then he saw that Shi Yu was indeed silent. Shi Jian and his wife Xuanhuan were immediately furious. Go to hell, Xuanhuan roared and killed him directly. After all, she also has the strength of the peak of the divine seal realm. However, Feng Xiaoyao gently blocked in front of her, pushed her back, and said, "How dare you attack the ancient god son?" The situation was out of control for a while. As an old family of the divine sect, the Shi family was furious when they saw their own godson die tragically. Xiaohuan wanted to attack, but was stopped by Shi Jian with a gloomy face. "Ancient godson, why did you kill my son? Give me a reason." Shi Jian's eyes were blazing. "Someone must have recorded it with the image talisman, just look for it, no need to ask me." Zhang Zizai's mind was not here at all. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Feng Qingyang. Chapter 404. Sure enough, someone recorded it with an image talisman, and there was a complete cause and effect from the beginning. Just because of these few words, the ancient Son of God actually killed my son. He is also the Son of God. Shi Jian gritted his teeth. People also made a noise. It's too cruel. Although Shijir is talkative, he is still the Son of God after all. How can he kill people casually? Is Zhang Zizai really crazy? After becoming the son of the ancient god, do you really think you can do whatever you want? Will anyone who says a few words to him in the future be killed? People were filled with indignation and looked at Zhang Zizai with red eyes. All eyes were on him. Zhang Zizai smiled coldly. He would not regret what he had done. From the beginning, he only wanted to be free and happy. This was his life creed. These people who occupied the moral high ground could not affect his heart. When he meets Shijir again, he still doesn't know how to talk, and he still has to die. He has been so irritable recently, and Shijir still doesn't know what is good or bad, so no one can blame him. So he smiled and said, "You are right, I did just kill him casually. If you have any objections, go and file a complaint." After saying that, he smiled dismissively, turned around and left. Behind him, people were filled with indignation and cursed Zhang Zizai for his misdeeds. He doesn't care. He was carefree, but he was so arrogant and dissolute. The person in his heart had a bad fate. She was suffering now. In Zhang Zizai's heart, no one would be better off insulting her. Whoever insults, then go to hell. He was full of demonic energy. Maybe he didn't know before that he had such a ferocious side. Maybe it was the black dragon totem that affected his character. But, what does that mean? He didn't care about the identity of the ancient god son at all. From the beginning of the competition for the ancient god son, he was just trying to find a way to keep her alive. If she couldn't survive in the end, any ancient divine son could go to hell. Shi Jian failed to touch him on the spot, because Feng Xiaoyao would definitely stop it. He knew that the more correct way to do this was to ask the master of the beast god palace to come forward. "Everyone, please follow me and find the palace master to seek justice for my son," Shi Jian said. "I will testify for you." Xiankang was the first to stand up. There are also many of his holy god servants who are on his side, including Qi Yuan's parents and elders. Zhang Zizai was too lazy to care about them. He just walked away amidst people's scolding and ridicule. During this period, he seemed to be drunk. Occasionally thinking of her white hair, the mark of the ancient god on his hand became darker, but it did not weaken and was still fiery and surging. When he climbed up to the beast god tower, neither Feng Xiaoxiao nor Feng Xiaoao followed him. Will he lose his identity as the son of the ancient god? Feng Xiaoxiao asked nervously. I don't know, who knows how Chu Shen will deal with it. But the trouble is, when this incident spreads, he completely loses his reputation in Shenzong, and now everyone is cursing him for being ruthless and cold-blooded. Feng Xiaoao sighed. Actually, I think Shizhi is really stupid. He doesn't know Zhang Zizai's state at all. He is just looking for death, Feng Xiaoxiao said speechlessly. This is no longer important. What is important is that Zhang Zizai killed him in public. The evidence is conclusive, and with what happened to Lu Huai last time, if his reputation continues to deteriorate, the sect leader will definitely give an explanation. What will happen? Don't worry, it's not easy for such a genius to appear. Today he easily defeated Yi Tian, which further proved his worth. At most, he should be locked up. After hearing this, Feng Xiaoxiao was completely relieved. I said, do you like him? Feng Xiaoao said. Stop talking nonsense. Feng Xiaoxiao glared at him and left alone. This made Feng Xiaoao dumbfounded. He looked at the top of the beast god tower. He knew that Shi Jian and the others would definitely file a complaint at the beast god temple. He hurried over and maybe he could say something nice to Zhang Zizai. When he arrived, he saw that Shi Jian and the others had left the temple of the beast god. My face looks quite bad when I look at the time book. Ling Qingtian was also in the team, and Feng Xiaoao quickly asked how the situation was. The palace master nodded and said that he understood and would tell the sect master. Only the sect master can handle the matter of the ancient god son. Feng Xiaoao breathed a sigh of relief. At least the sentence hadn't been announced yet, but he had no idea how the sect leader would deal with Zhang Zizai. On the way here, I heard everyone discussing that this kid is so crazy. He ruined his reputation in one day. Feng Xiaoao sighed. He is a person who values love and justice, and he is also a person with a pure mind. Although he is not that smooth, he is still very good. I think it is best to grow up if you suffer some setbacks, Ling Qingtian said. The key depends on whether Juxian can survive. If she leaves, Zhang Zizai's righteous path in this life may be destroyed. If Shijian and the others continue to force me, I'm worried that he will go astray and fall into the trap of ruthless murder. Can't get out of the loop. Ling Qingtian knew that his worries were justified. However, they are only the middle-level figures of Shenzong, and the real upper-level people are the sect masters and palace masters, so whether the 9 immortals will die or not, and Zhang Zizai's future depends on their decision. Time passed day by day, and the master of the beast god palace informed the first god about the matter, but the first god seemed to have no reaction for the time being. The more Shi Jian and the others waited, the more anxious they became. Madame was worried at home all day long. If she had not been tied up, she would have gone to the beast god tower to kill Zhang Zizai. Sect master, you won't let this matter go, right? The man of time said angrily. Zhang Zizai was not dealt with, and they did not let Shi Yu rest in peace. He has not been buried yet. It is possible. Everyone looked at Shi Jian. That was his son, and he should have taken action. Shi Jian took a deep breath and said, let the whole family go out and spread Zhang Zizai's evil deeds everywhere, so as to make the Shenzong more chaotic and make the people above restless. Yes. Tell my brother Shi Jian to let Fengtian dynasty also make trouble and go to the sacrifice temple, so that the people can seek justice for my son. I don't believe that in such a chaotic situation, the sect master will not deal with him. The people of the Shi family began to jump up and down every day, and the Shenzong was undercurrent, cursing all day long. But unfortunately, the sect master still did not respond, which made many people in the Shen zone discouraged. Sure enough, people with talent can really do whatever they want. The Shen zone is finished. Who wouldn't live in fear if this murderous devil became stronger and stronger in the future? People sighed. Zhang Zizai never cared about what happened outside. He was in the final sprint. He finally waited until the first day of June. On this day, he could finally go in and see the 9 Immortals. He had waited for this day for too long. As soon as the time came, he appeared at the door of the first god realm. The connection between the totems told him that she was inside, but her breath was very weak. It seemed that it would be cut off at any time. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 405. As soon as the first day of June arrived, Zhang Zizai came here impatiently. He opened the wooden door and went directly into the first god realm, and then walked quickly towards the Xuanhuan temple in the thick clouds. Passing through the statues, 2 temples were already standing in front of him. Strangely, no one had ever been to the Sun Temple, and no one had ever come out of there. Maybe the first god of the sun was not in the divine sect. That means it might be in the real god realm. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward arrow. Zhang Zizai didn't care about this problem. He quickly came to the Xuanhuan temple. Before he knocked on the door, the voice of the first god of Xuanhuan came from inside, "Come in." At the same time as her voice came out, the door of the Xuanhuan temple had been opened, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was also surging inside, almost condensed into liquid, blocking Zhang Zizai's sight. As soon as he came in, Xuanhuan Chushan came out of the mist and came to his eyes. His stunning appearance showed majesty and solemnity, and his eyes were as bright as the moon, bringing the power of a superior. Her eyes swept over Zhang Zizai. "Attack me," she said. As expected, she had to test Zhang Zizai's strength first. Zhang Zizai must pass the test, otherwise, she would not even let him see Juxian. He did not waste time, and directly transformed the magic eye in his hand into a war halberd, exerted the power of the totem seal, and gathered it on the war halberd, splitting the dragon 3 styles, and violently killing. Flying dragons tearing the sky, Tyrannosaurus splitting the sea, and the sky dragon breaking the void. 3 consecutive moves, all of which were easily resolved by Xuanhuan Chushan. Zhang Zizai's attack was like a stone sinking into the sea, and even her hair was not disturbed. She really deserves to be a monster who has practiced for hundreds of years. She looks young, but in fact, she is not from the same era as Zhang Zizai. Even the Lord of the Beast God Palace is so old that Xuanhuan Chushan is his great-grandmother. It seems that you have reached the 3rd level of the Divine Seal realm in the last few days. Xuanhuan Chushan nodded with satisfaction. She was right. After defeating Yishan, Zhang Zizai thought about it. It was almost the first day of June. If he did not meet the requirements of Xuanhuan Chushan and continued to be decadent, more people would be disappointed in him. So, he finally concentrated for a while, sprinted with all his strength, and condensed the 3rd level of Divine Seal, Tuo Shinayan on the Totem Sea. The Divine Dragon, with a camel-like head, belongs to thunder. On the Totem Sea, a camel head wrapped with black thunder appeared under the flaming antlers. When the two were combined together, in an instant, they had formed most of the dragon head. It was like the head of a divine dragon, which had already taken shape on the Totem Sea, and then connected to the previous snake neck. This dark divine dragon, with thunder, fire, and ice added together, had already taken a preliminary shape. In fact, he had been working hard for the past 2 or 3 months, but his mind was not unified. After making up his mind, he finally broke through to the 3rd level of the Divine Seal realm before the first day of June. He knew at that time that if he did not complete the task she set for him, she would probably formally deal with the matter of him killing Shi Yu. And when Zhang Zizai completed the task she assigned, she did not mention Shi Yu. It seems that Shi Jian and the others will be disappointed, he thought to himself. Although you disappointed me in the past 2 months, you finally stabilized your state of mind and turned it around. You will need a more stable mentality in your future cultivation and not be affected by external things in order to achieve more brilliant achievements. After checking Zhang Zizai's realm, she nodded slightly. I know, Chu Shen. His eyes looked into the depths of the Xuanhuan temple. Everyone knew what he was anxious about now. I will take you to see her now, but you need to be mentally prepared. There are 2 things that you may not be able to accept. Xuanhuan. Chu Shen was very straightforward and pointed it out directly. Zhang Zizai knew that it was June now. In April, he had already had a head full of white hair. Now, almost 20 years had passed for her. She must have looked older. Perhaps, this was one of the psychological preparations. Okay, he took a deep breath. You are too young. Xuanhuan Chushan shook his head and said, as if sighing. After that, she led the way in front, and Zhang Zizai hurriedly followed behind her. It turned out that there were many rooms in the Xuanhuan temple. Zhang Zizai had been staying in the hall at the front. There was a passage behind the hall. There were many things placed in the rooms on the left and right. It was probably the place where Xuanhuan Chushan rested. She seemed to have arranged Juxian in a very inner position until she walked to the end of this corridor. There was a door inside. She glanced at Zhang Zizai, then pushed the door open and motioned for Zhang Zizai to go in. Although there was a mist inside, Zhang Zizai had felt her breath a long time ago, and it was a breath he could not forget. He walked in with a slightly trembling step. He had already seen a figure, lying on a white jade stone, which was carved into the shape of a bed. This was a spiritual or similar to the soul-enriching divine stone, which was obviously much better than the soul-enriching divine stone. Endless spiritual energy gathered in it, and anyone who practiced on it would have extremely high benefits. That figure was naturally the 9 Immortals. There was also a person standing next to him, tall and thin, standing there and moving. That was the 9 gods. When Zhang Zizai came in, he nodded to Zhang Zizai. He seemed to be fine. Zhang Zizai didn't think that his suspicion of Xuanhuan Chushan was indeed over-concerned until then. Zhang Zizai walked up quickly, and the person on the white jade bed was struggling until he came, blocking his face. Zhang Zizai was already standing beside her. He could see everything clearly. Her body had become much thinner, like a dying old woman. The hand covering her face was also thinner and had many black spots. The fragrance on her body had turned into a stink. In terms of appearance, she could be said to have fallen from heaven to the abyss. Zhang Zizai pulled her hand away and held it tightly. Her palm was shaking. I'm too ugly. Don't look at me. Juxian turned her head away, her voice trembling. Nonsense, at your age, you are still the most beautiful in the world. Zhang Zizai smiled. He saw her face. It was indeed difficult to associate her with the former beauty. The wrinkles on her face and the withered complexion were the reasons why Zhang Zizai's ancient god mark became darker. However, he still held her hand tightly. Sure enough, after falling in love, appearance seemed not so important. He stretched out his hand and gently lifted the white hair on her face. The deep affection in his eyes could not be concealed. You only know how to coax me, silly. You must think I'm ugly, so you don't even kiss me. Juxian rolled his eyes. She is still so cute. Haha, I really can't kiss her. Zhang Zizai laughed. The two smiled at each other, but it wasn't that sad. They always laughed whenever they were together. So, what is the second psychological preparation? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 406. She has become so old. Does this mean that the rebirth art is still useless? This was what Zhang Zizai was most worried about. Let's talk business first. After they met, Xuanhuan Chushan stood aside and said calmly. Zhu Xian stuck out her tongue. It seemed that she and Xuanhuan Chushan were actually getting along well. The face of Zhu Shen next to him is not very good, maybe he is more worried. Zhang Zizai, don't look at her. She is already very old. In fact, she has been practicing the rebirth art very well during this period. The effect of the rebirth art is not visible for the time being. She needs to break through a bottleneck. If she can break through this, if there is a bottleneck, it should be no problem to extend the lifespan by 1 to 2 years, and even look younger. As it reached the critical point, Zhang Zizai felt a little more relaxed. He thought that the rebirth technique had no effect at all. The first god helped me a lot, Juxian whispered. It seemed that she was indeed cultivating very well there. She said so. Zhang Zizai felt a little guilty in his heart. It seemed that he had really misunderstood Xuanhuan Chushan. She is indeed strict, but she actually has a good heart, but she just doesn't bother to express it. Next, I will set a suitable day to help her break through the shackles of the rebirth art and achieve the purpose of extending her life. But before that, there is one more thing you need to know, Xuanhuan Chushan said very seriously. What? Zhang Zizai was a little confused. This should be the second mental preparation she mentioned. Look at her belly. Zhang Zizai was startled for a moment, turned his head, and was shocked to see that Juxian's belly was slightly bulging, like a pregnant woman who was 5 or 6 months pregnant. Normally, pregnancy can only be seen from the outline of the belly in the 5th or 6th month of pregnancy. There will basically be some vomiting reaction in the first 3 months, but it varies from person to person. I'm sorry, I didn't avoid it a few times. Juxian's voice was very soft. Maybe for her, this was the most difficult thing to do. What? Zhang Zizai still didn't react. After all, he was only 17 years old. She's pregnant, Xuanhuan Chushan said in a cold voice. No way. Zhang Zizai felt like he was struck by thunder. If both of them were normal, they would definitely be happy, but now that Juxian is in this situation, she is so old, how can the fetus survive? Moreover, she is not sure how long she can live. If the 5th day of September is used to worship the gods, she may not be born yet. Sure enough, he needed to be mentally prepared. He was in a state of confusion now. Looking at Juxian's bulging belly, he felt that this was his own sin. She was already suffering, why did he make her suffer even more? And, what will be the future of this little life? Things have happened, so what matters now is the solution. As the initiator, you need to calm down. Xuanhuan Chushan glared at him, seeming to be very dissatisfied with this matter. After all, this would make it more difficult for the 9 immortals to extend their lifespan. This little life has been growing silently for 5 months, or even 6 months. Logically speaking, he has begun to have his own consciousness. Zhang Zizai remembered that when he was traveling in the origin continent, he occasionally saw her retching, but at that time they both thought it was the effect of the divine curse and didn't think much about it. At that time, this little life already existed. Under the warning of Xuanhuan Chushan, he took a deep breath and asked, how is the situation now? Actually, it's a bit of a miracle. I thought it was impossible for the fetus to survive. After all, her body was so old that it was difficult to maintain life. But the strange thing is that the fetus grew normally and had very strong vitality. It was not affected by the divine curse at all. Even the flesh and blood in her mother's abdomen became vigorous, and he was still growing rapidly. Maybe he would come to this world before the 5th day of September. Of course, it was also possible that as his mother aged, he would stop growing. Even died together with his mother Xianyan Chushinto. Zhang Zizai held her hand tightly, his eyes staring at her abdomen. Sure enough, there was a strong breath of life there, and he could even hear the sound of his strong heart beating, which could be said to be rapid and fierce, like a giant beast. Even though the body of the 9 immortals has almost reached the extreme state of aging, This little life is still growing vigorously. This is truly a miracle. He looked at Xuanhuan, who shed a few tears and said, I want to give birth to him and let him accompany you instead of me. In the future, you must teach him well and let him become a person like you. Perhaps, this was her wish at this time. Don't talk about it yet. What I want is for you to live. After Zhang Zizai finished speaking, he knew that the first god of Xuanhuan must be decisive, so he asked, what should I do? You don't need to do anything. Since she is a member of my divine sect, and since I brought her here, she will start well and end well. This is my plan. Now that she has practiced the art of rebirth to the extreme, she is just short of the final success. If it is a success, you will be able to rejuvenate yourself, and you may be able to stay at the age of 40 for a period of time, extending your life for 1 to 2 years. This is enough time for the fetus to be born, and it is also enough for you to think of other ways to resist the divine curse. So the key is this breakthrough. If she didn't take this adventure, she would be dead in 3 months, and 90% of the time, the fetus would not survive, Xuanhuan said. Speaking of which, all hope lies in the art of rebirth. This little life had already appeared, and Zhang Zizai couldn't let him die. Of course, he couldn't let the 9 immortals leave in regret. Xiao Bai, I don't want him to die, I want him to grow up well. Xuanhuan pulled his hand hard, and suddenly burst into tears, saying, he is the only one who can stay in this world, proving that I have lived, and is the best gift from God to me. He must be kept alive. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the wonderful content. Mother's love is great. Zhang Zizai didn't expect that his life would be so ups and downs. The divine curse master was already troublesome enough, and such a thing happened to him. This child is really unlucky. He is not sure whether he can come to this world after being born like this. We can't wait any longer. On the 6th day of the 6th lunar month, 6 days later, a blood moon will descend on the earth. I plan to work with the 5 palace masters to set up the rebirth array recorded in the rebirth art to help her break through her limits. The rebirth art was originally created by a strong man who wanted to change his fate and extend his lifespan. There are many successful cases. The blood moon only comes once a year. If she misses this opportunity, she will have less than a 10% chance of mastering the rebirth art before the day of worshipping the god. Xuanhuan said. It seems that she has already arranged everything. What if she fails? Zhang Zizai asked. Failure will have no effect on her, but it is equivalent to losing the only chance. If she wants to break through the rebirth art by herself, it will definitely be very difficult. It is equivalent to handing over the life and death of these 2 lives to fate. Xuanhuan said very directly. He looked at Xuanhuan. Believe me, I want to give birth to him and accompany him for a year or 2. So that he won't forget his biological mother in the future, Xuanhuan said with a smile. She was still able to laugh at this time. Sometimes she cried, sometimes she laughed. But her eyes were full of courage and struggle. Even if it wasn't for herself, she might have lost her temper for this poor little life. The outcome of this fight against fate and the ancient gods will be revealed in 6 days. Zhang Zizai just regretted that he only knew about so many important things today. And from the beginning to the end, he might not be able to help. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 407. You don't need to blame yourself. No matter whether she is pregnant or not, she will make this attempt on the night of the blood moon on the 6th day of June. Xuanhuan said. Today is the 1st day of June. That's all, I'll make an exception this time and let you stay here for 6 days. Originally there were only 3 days, but being able to stay with her until that day was so important to Zhang Zizai. Thank you very much. The kindness of the first god will never be forgotten. Zhang Zizai remembered that he had seriously doubted them. It seemed that he had the heart of a villain and tried to save the heart of a gentleman. No need, you should take your identity as the son of the ancient god. If you can grow up, Shenzhen will need your protection. Xuanhuan, the first god, still had the same cold tone. It seems that she has always had this attitude. She gave Zhang Zizai and Juxian some time alone. The 9 gods also went out. Listen, he's sleeping inside. It's fun to wake him up when talking about this little life. She was as happy as a child. Zhang Zizai gently placed his ear against her belly. The sound of this little life's heartbeat was very obvious, which made Zhang Zizai a little confused. After all, he was really not prepared at all. In the days, there was joy and excitement, but he couldn't be too excited because the person who suffered was the 9 immortals. Do you like boys or girls? Juxian asked. Zhang Zizai thought for a while and said, girl. Really, most people will say that both men and women are good. You idiot, if he was still a boy, he would be so sad when he heard what you said. Juxian really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Actually, you are still a child yourself, so I know that if I suddenly tell you such a thing, you will definitely not be able to react. Juxian gently held his head. I just feel sorry for you, Zhang Zizai said. There's nothing to feel bad about. In fact, the situation is already very good. At least there is still a chance to work hard. In 6 days, I will be a qualified mother and give him a chance to live. I will definitely. It's hard to imagine, there is such tenacity in her now withered body. Maybe this is maternal love. The way she looked at her belly was completely different. You have a headache. You are just a child, and another child is coming. Juxian covered her forehead. At this time, her panic and sadness could not be seen at all. She only had endless fighting spirit. Zhang Zizai gently lifted her up and held her in his arms. He was actually not mentally prepared today, so he was still a little sluggish until now. However, he would always wake up completely, and now he was hugging her. Her body was full of weakness and aging. He didn't know what promise he should make to ensure the safety of her mother and son. He doesn't have the ability to fight against the divine curse. He didn't say it out loud, but he had already sworn in his heart that he would protect them until death. No matter how powerful they are, whether they are heaven, earth, or gods, whoever wants to snatch them away from him, Zhang Zizai will tear these plunderers into pieces. His eyes were blood red. Baby, Daddy is here, do you want to say hello? Juxian covered his abdomen, the smile on his face was full of maternal glory. Unexpectedly, the lower abdomen actually trembled, it was very powerful, and the pain made Juxian grin. It hurt so much. You little rascal, do you need to be so excited to see your dad? How amazing! Zhang Zizai came closer, listened, and asked, is there anyone inside? As a result, I stuck it too close and was really punched. So powerful, he was shocked. He thought pregnancy was just a state, and life comes after the baby is born. Unexpectedly, he was only 6 months old, and he was jumping up and down inside, like a real person. It was so amazing that he was a little at a loss for a while. He didn't expect that the results of working day and night after the Beast God Tower would really come out. You are here today. He is very happy today. The one who is punching and kicking inside will definitely become a martial arts wizard in the future. Juxian's eyes were full of hope. She must have thought that the two of them would take this little life with them. It's like traveling around the world. However, the 6th day of June was the biggest hurdle in her life. This is also Zhang Zizai's biggest hurdle in his life. There was longing in her eyes, which was normal for anyone, but for them, it was extravagant hope. Suddenly I felt that I had grown up in a day. Zhang Zizai pressed his face against hers, closed his eyes, and held her old and frail body with both hands. Life is really interesting. This little life is also very interesting. Only fate is very cruel. Do you know why I want to give birth to him? Juxian's eyes were cunning. Zhang Zizai shook his head. From now on, there will be a dragster next to you. It won't be so easy to pick up girls, haha. She actually laughed happily, as if that scene was very funny. Haha. Zhang Zizai also smiled. How do you know he won't give advice for his father to pick up girls? Huh, Zhu Xian was startled for a moment and gritted his teeth. I thought they would part ways, but bursts of laughter came from inside, making the first god Xuanhuan and the 5 palace masters who had just arrived look at each other. Honestly, in the past 2 months without me, have you ever gone out to have sex? Juxian asked with a glare. Absolutely not. Heaven witnesses it. Didn't Feng Xiaoxiao take advantage of the situation and shamelessly seduce you under the guise of caring about you? No. Didn't Huilei come to me? No. She reached out her hand and touched Zhang Zizai's body, then nodded and said, not bad, there are a lot of stocks, but it's a pity that I can't enjoy them. Don't be so bold, okay, there are many elders outside. Zhang Zizai said embarrassedly. How could a dying person reach out and grab the crotch like her? Too unrestrained. But it's not like that, how could she be so cute? Zhang Zizai almost hugged her into his body. Maybe she was ugly at this time, and even smelled bad, but she was always perfect in his heart. Zhang Zizai stayed with her until she fell asleep, and then let Xuanhuan Chushan and the others call out. Let me tell you the specific arrangements for 6 days later, Xuanhuan Chushan said. For such an important day, Zhang Zizai naturally had to understand all the details clearly. He saw the rebirth array when he was reading the Rebirth Sutra, at the end. It seems to be a quick way to improve and master the rebirth technique, and it has miraculous effects on certain days. The origin continent has a blood moon every year, but the time is uncertain, it can be from March to September. They estimated that this year it is the 6th day of June. The blood moon is a necessary condition for the rebirth array. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Feng Qingyang. Chapter 408. When the time comes, we will set up the resurrection soul array at the origin altar. The blood moon is the strongest when it is ugly. That is the best time. We will go to the resurrection soul array, absorb the power of the blood moon, and help her break through the shackles of the rebirth technique Xianyan Chushinto. Zhang Zizai recalled the content of the rebirth art, and it was almost the same as what she said. Since ancient times, the dragon totem has been the head of all beasts, possessing the most majestic blood. When the time comes, a dragon totem owner may be needed to stand in the rebirth formation. At that time, some energy and blood power may be needed. Maintaining her ability to absorb the blood moon is also an important part, Xuanhuan Chushan said suddenly. Is there any need for me? Zhang Zizai thought it had nothing to do with him. It sounded like he needed to provide qi and blood for the 9 immortals. Maybe both of them will be in there by then. Being able to help, rather than just being helpless and watching, is good news for Zhang Zizai. Unexpectedly, Xuanhuan Chushan shook his head. I am the dragon totem. You are still young and your energy and blood are unstable, so it is better for me to do it. Be more reliable. The master of the beast god palace suddenly stood up and said. Are you a dragon totem? Zhang Zizai was surprised. He really didn't know at all. Do you think you are the only dragon totem outside the Tianlong Holy Dynasty? Back then, I was also a genius, the beast god palace master said with a smile. He is so hidden, no wonder he can become the master of the beast god palace. Dragon is the supreme beast. It seems that they still don't have themselves in their plans. Zhang Zizai thought about it for a while. If the master of the beast god palace took action, he would definitely be much safer than himself who didn't know anything. Actually, you can go, but in order to avoid you suspecting that I have any conspiracy against you two, let's forget it, Xuanhuan Chushan said coldly. First God, I misunderstood you before, I'm sorry, Zhang Zizai said sincerely. Judging from the current situation, she has really helped him a lot. If the 9 immortals can prolong life, It can even be said that the favor is as great as a mountain. No need to apologize, remember to focus on growing up in the future. Before you have enough power, all talents are of no value, Xuanhuan Chushan said, then turned and left. The other 4 palace masters didn't say much. Zhang Zizai, first, God has been so kind to you, you should restrain yourself outside. If first God doesn't deal with you about killing Shijie, it will have an impact on her reputation, the Lord of Tianshan Palace said coldly. He looked a little unhappy. Thinking about it carefully, it is indeed a bit unreasonable that they are all helping him, but he has spent 2 months as a walking dead. Thank you to the 5 palace masters. It won't happen again. The resurrection array still needs their strength, so Zhang Zizai naturally wants to be grateful. Come on, I just feel that little life is pitiful. Since he was born in Shenzong, he must survive. The master of Tianshan Palace clasped his hands behind his back, turned around and left. Of course, 6 days later, they will all gather at the origin altar. It seems that in these 2 days, they will start decorating the origin altar. In the remaining 6 days, Zhang Ziu's only thing was to practice with the 9 immortals. He also went to understand the rebirth art, sorted out the details, and pondered over the resurrection formation. However, with his level, which is more difficult to understand. Seeing Zhang Zizai being so serious, the 9 immortals couldn't help but laugh at him. Don't worry, I'm very powerful. It's nothing trivial. In such a desperate situation, she can still be so optimistic. It can only be said that her mentality is really good. Have you ever doubted them? Zhang Zizai asked. When I was first captured, I must have been suspicious. But later, I saw that although the Chushan looked a little stinky, she was really helping me. At first, when the child's breath was a little weak, she was the one who came to help me every day. Then not long after, my brother came and observed it for a while and felt there was nothing wrong with it. Zhang Zizai nodded. When she was practicing, Zhang Zizai was watching. Zhu Xian would occasionally open his eyes and see him right in front of her, and he would reveal a smile full of security. She would often put her fingers on her lower abdomen subconsciously, as if to protect the little life. Hope lies in the blood moon. Am I a father? Zhang Zizai started to giggle as he thought about it. This cute little life, as well as his fighting mother, are the people he vows to protect to the death. I used to feel that I had no worries. Only then did he know where his home was. Wherever he has his wife and children, that is his home. Men must protect this home and the people they love. He didn't speak, but his heart was raging like fire. The 6th day of June is here in a blink of an eye. It is said that the resurrection array has been set up during the day, and Xuanhuan Chushan ordered the Shenzong priests not to approach the altar of origin during this period. Curious people can only look from a distance, but they cannot see clearly what is going on here. In the early evening, there were still several hours before Joshi, Xuanhuan Chushan brought them to the origin altar. The 5 palace masters are already here. Only the 9 gods are with them, and no one else can come in. Shi Jian was still making a fuss about his son. During this period, Shenzong and Fengtian dynasty were in a state of turmoil, but no one paid attention to him. Zhang Zizai and the 9 gods were guarding the 9 immortals. The origin altar had indeed been decorated. Zhang Zizai discovered that there were many totem patterns carved on the ground of the altar, with thousands of blood-colored symbols, twisting and turning on it like a long snake that had come to life, which looked a bit scary. Drawing totem patterns on the ground was the first time that Zhang Zizai had seen this method of use. It is said that if a formation is formed, it is called a totem formation. The totem formation is a very advanced mystery. It is said that the existence that can create a totem formation is called a totem formation master, which is even rarer than the totem talisman master. It is estimated that there are only a few in the entire origin continent, and Xuanhuan Chushan should be one of the very rare ones. The power of the totem formation, when used appropriately, is much stronger than the Totem talisman. The mystery in it cannot be compared with the Totem talisman. So Zhang Zizai felt confused when he saw this rebirth formation. In addition to the totem patterns on the ground, Zhang Zizai discovered that some statues of the first god realm had been moved out, a total of 99, and placed on the origin altar according to some strange rules. These grey statues currently have grey eyes and many totem patterns on their bodies. Overall, it is very strange. In the center of the entire origin altar, there is a special existence, which seems to be a white lotus platform, like a blooming lotus. It is probably the center of the entire rebirth formation. When the time comes, the 9 immortals will practice in this position. The sky quickly darkened. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 409. The 5 great palace masters had ordered that the disciples and servants of the divine sect should not move around casually, let alone approach the holy altar of origin. Even the holy servants did not know what they were doing here. The disciples were curious, but after all, they had been ordered to stay in their residences. However, when night fell, the scene in the sky still attracted many disciples. The starry sky tonight can be said to be pitch black, and there is not a single star in the cloudless sky. For the sky island flying above the clouds, a night without a single star is extremely rare. At this point, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow dot. Without the stars, the blood-red crescent moon in the sky above is particularly conspicuous. In the dark starry sky, a blood-red crescent moon hangs obliquely, emitting a trace of blood, which dissipates in the starry sky. It looks like a mouth dripping blood. No matter who it is, as long as they look up at this blood moon for a few more times, they will shudder. The blood moon is strange and mysterious. It is said to be a bloody omen. Although it only appears once a year, it still brings some human disasters. The day of the blood moon is a grand festival of the Yuanqi underworld palace. Often on this day, people from the underworld palaces in various places will go out to worship the blood moon, and even ask the people to follow the worship. On the origin continent, the dots of fire are all gatherings of people worshipping the blood moon. The underworld palace has been shrinking for nearly 1,000 years. They basically go out on the day of the blood moon every year to attract more believers. The young worshippers will naturally be interested in the blood moon, so tonight is destined to be impossible to be quiet. There are many young people walking on Bailey Tianjia, discussing and admiring the moon. The blood-red moonlight poured down, as if the whole earth was covered with a layer of blood, and everyone's face was a gloomy red. Juxian's face was already very pale, but under the blood moon, it showed a strange red color. Help her to the lotus platform first, and we will start when it is close to the hour of the ox. Xuanhuan Chushan ordered. Zhang Zizai followed his words and carried Juxian to the lotus platform. It was difficult for her to sit steadily now, so Zhang Zizai stood by the side to give her support. To be honest, seeing the cold and ruthless blood moon in the sky, a tense atmosphere was permeating, and the atmosphere became even more weird when Jushan, the 5 palace masters and Xuanhuan Chushan did not speak. "Oh my god, this blood moon is too scary," Juxian complained. In fact, in the origin continent, the blood moon is not very obvious, so the feeling is not deep. Now on the sky island, the blood moon is almost like it is above the head, which is extremely weird. The deeper the night, the brighter the blood moon above the head, and the more dazzling it is. The whole world has become a blood-red world. Tonight is definitely the day with the most bloodshed in the origin continent. With such a moonlight, many people will be aroused to be fierce and dare to hurt others. Juxian seems to be very brave, but in fact, his palms are sweating as he keeps holding Zhang Zizai. If there is anything wrong, you must listen to my instructions under such a blood moon, Zhang Zizai also has some ominous premonitions. Juxian nodded obediently. It is said that the breakthrough process of her Wangshengju may last for the entire Zhou time. In the blink of an eye, it was already late at night. Zhou time is coming soon, let's start to get into the state first. Xuanhuan Chushan looked at the position of the blood moon, and it seemed that the blood moon would soon rise to the center. Under the guidance of Xuanhuan Chushan's eyes, Zhang Zizai had to leave her side and let the Lord of the Beast God go in. Don't worry, I'm here. The Lord of the Beast God patted Zhang Zizai's shoulder and staggered with him. He stood behind Juxian, and Juxian landed on the lotus platform. He was just behind him to put his palm on Juxian's back. The tense moment is coming. Xuanhuan Chushan and the other 4 palace masters stood in the 5 directions of the rebirth formation, seemingly standing in the positions of the 5 elements of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. There was a blood-colored circular totem pattern under their feet. At this time, the totem pattern was twisting under the reflection of the blood moon, emitting a strange light. According to Xuanhuan Chushan's instructions, Juxian began to practice the rebirth art. She sat cross-legged and tried to straighten her back. The breath of presence and absence swam around her, forming a vortex. The vortex rotated in the opposite direction, as if to reverse the passing of her life. Begin, Xuanhuan Chushan gave an order, and the 4 palace masters except the beast god palace master took action at the same time. They used their legs to infuse their power into the totem pattern. For a moment, the totem pattern began to twist and connect with each other on the entire origin altar like a living long snake, and also connected the 99 statues on it and the lotus platform in the center. The entire origin altar was shrouded in blood light, forming a blood-red totem array. In the totem array, blood-colored lines kept moving like blood snakes. Those blood-colored lines, through the statue and the lotus platform, had been connected to Juxian's body. For a moment, blood-red lines were all over her body, even from her neck upwards, like a poisonous snake wrapped around her face. The whole scene looked extremely strange, but the rebirth array described it in this way. At this time, the origin altar seemed to have tens of millions of blood snakes moving around, connecting the statue and the 5 people standing in the 5 elements. Xuanhuan Chushan and others dominated the magic array, and Juxian was the center of the entire totem array. The rebirth array was already in operation. Juxian closed her eyes and concentrated on practicing the rebirth technique. The blood on her body became more and more intense. It is said that after the blood turned into a cocoon, she would be able to obtain this strong blood, just like being reborn, and gain life again. Although it is only a short year or 2, that is still hope. At least there was hope for a safe birth. At such a time, what she showed was a godlike fighting spirit. Zhang Zizai knew that she must be very tired, but at this moment, it was as if she was having a flashback. Even her face became rosy, like the flesh and blood on her body, all are glowing again. Of course, these are all preparations before the official start. Now we are just waiting for the ugly time to come. At that time, the moonlight is the strongest. At that time, the first god Xuanhuan will activate the brilliance of the blood moon and join the rebirth formation. Zhang Zizai waited with bated breath. There are occasional noisy sounds around. It seems that the blood-filled movement here has attracted the attention of many people. Finally, the ugly time has come. This is when the blood moon is in the sky overhead. Many priests and disciples come out to admire the moon. Suddenly, they see a ray of light shooting out of the blood moon, falling from the sky, and the bloody light brought a terrifying and evil aura to Sky Island. It falls exactly in the center of the 5 pillars of origin. For a moment, it seemed as if there was a blood-red pillar of origin in the center of Sky Island. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 410. Zhang Zizai clearly saw that the light of the blood moon formed a blood column, which fell from the sky and was attracted by the rebirth array and landed on the origin altar. The blood-colored light completely gathered in the rebirth array. For a moment, the rebirth array instantly became 10 times brighter and 10 times more complex. The entire totem array was like a blood-colored hemisphere, covering the origin altar, with countless blood snakes wandering and whistling in it. The light of the blood moon passed through the totem array and landed directly on Juxian's chest. At this moment, she and the blood moon in the sky were completely connected. Across the totem array, Zhang Zizai heard her cry softly, and she seemed a little uncomfortable. She frowned, and after the blood moon light fell, she still did not forget to practice the rebirth secret, relying on willpower to hold on. No one could imagine how determined she was at this time, especially when she had a fresh little life in her belly. In order to save herself, and to save this little life. Under the blood light, she gritted her teeth and continued to fight with the blood moon. The whole totem formation was shaking. She cried out in pain, but she still clenched her teeth. Zhang Zizai felt particularly distressed, but this was against the heavens, and he could not help at all. He could only worry outside. Hold on. Hold on. The majestic voice of Xuanhuan Chushan came, and she and the 4 palace masters seemed to be in a storm at this time. The power of the blood moon was so magnificent that even if they were the top people in the origin continent, they were now like swaying in the wind and rain. The blood of the dragon totem. Under the order of Xuanhuan Chushan, the palace master of the beast god received the order, and he cut open the palm of his right hand with his left fingers, and the blood came out of it, condensed into countless small dragons, and suppressed the back of Juxian. Dragon roars were heard, and the magnificent vitality emerged in this rebirth formation. It was difficult for Juxian to hold on, but when the blood and chi of the dragon totem flowed through her body, her face became much rosier, and under the light of the blood moon, she also held on. Zhang Zizai heard them say that the blood and chi of the dragon totem of the universe level totem must be used to have an effect. This beast god palace master is not very prominent, but he also has such a high level dragon totem, but Zhang Zizai still doesn't know what kind of dragon totem he is. He saw with his own eyes that with the support of the beast god palace master, Juxian finally held on, and the expression on her face was not as painful as before. Be patient and wait, the whole process may last for an hour. We can only do our best, and the rest depends on her own luck. In the totem formation, Xuanhuan Chushan glanced at Zhang Zizai and said lightly. Jushan also patted Zhang Zizai's shoulder and asked him to calm down. At present, the situation is good. Some of the priests were not very obedient. When they saw that the light of the blood moon actually fell on the sky island, some people secretly came here to find out. As time went by, more and more people came, but they were all watching from a distance. What is that? It seems to be the sect master and the palace master. The person standing outside is Zhang Zizai, and Jushan. What are they doing here? It seems to be a special ritual. Who is the old woman in the middle who is pierced by the blood moon? I don't know, Jushan and Zhang Zizai are here, so it can't be the spellcaster. It must be the spellcaster. It seems that Xuanhuan Chushan doesn't want her to live until the 5th day of September, so he uses her to sacrifice to the ancient gods at this time. The blood moon is an ominous sign, I'm afraid it's true. But why is Zhang Zizai watching so obediently? Nonsense, he was attracted by the beauty of the magic spellcaster. Now that she is old and ugly, he probably wants her to die. The magic spellcaster is so unlucky. If she didn't happen to have a stunning appearance, how could she live until now? That's right. After all, she is old and ugly. It's scary to look at her. Time passed, and more people came from the 5 major palaces. Although the palace master had instructed not to approach casually, there were people leading the way. Everyone was watching the blood moon, and then found that many people were still coming here. Driven by curiosity, luck, and herd mentality, in less than half an hour, tens of thousands of people gathered around. At the critical moment, Xuanhuan Chushan didn't seem to have the time to drive them away. After all, they were all watching from a distance and didn't get close. The whole ugly hour was almost halfway through. The more time passed, the more nervous Zhang Zizai became. At this time, he could see that a thin layer of cocoon had formed around Juxian. According to the rebirth array, when the blood cocoon is fully formed, she will be able to break through the transformation and prolong her life. Now, everything is still on the normal track. It's just that all the auras in the totem array seem to be extremely violent. Xuanhuan Chushan and others need to consume a lot of power to control the totem array. Hold on. Although everyone's face is pale, they have faith after all. This group of people actually helped him and Juxian so much. Zhang Zizai was a little dazed for a while. This whole process seemed much more difficult than he imagined. Chushan, the consumption is much greater than I thought. The power of the blood moon is difficult to control. Suddenly, the beast god palace master said with a trembling voice. Zhang Zizai didn't pay attention to him before. Now he looked carefully and found that he was pale, trembling all over, and his blood and qi were exhausted. When his blood and qi were insufficient, the blood cocoon was no longer stable. Juxian, who was penetrated by the light of the blood moon in the blood cocoon, looked exhausted again. This change led to the change of the entire totem formation. For a time, the totem formation became very unstable and was almost broken by the light of the blood moon. Chu Shen, if it goes on, I'm afraid I will consume my lifespan, the lord of the beast god palace struggled. His face was very ugly. Unexpectedly, it was this link that led to the possibility of failure. Without his dragon totem blood and qi, Juxian could not hold on. I'm afraid the efforts of the previous half an hour would be wasted. If this time failed, Juxian and the fetus might not be able to escape the fate of death when September 5th arrived. The situation was extremely critical in the blink of an eye. The lord of the beast god palace gritted his teeth and waited for the decision of Xuanhuan Chu Shen. Zhang Zizai almost blurted out, I'll do it. If Xuanhuan Chu Shen couldn't hold on, he was the only one with the dragon totem of the universe. Although he was not sure about himself, he had no choice now. Xuanhuan Chushan narrowed his eyes and said, okay, you go in and replace him. You are young and energetic. As long as you control it well, you can hold on for half an hour. Her words were enough for Zhang Zizai. He rushed in without hesitation and arrived at the lotus platform with difficulty. In front of him were the two people he swore to protect.